Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Aaron, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Welcome, everyone. We are here on Successful But Struggling once again, and today we're going to be discovering and talking about something that, frankly, you'll see brings out a lot of vulnerabilities, similar vulnerabilities that you're probably finding in your own life when it comes to the decisions you make, when it comes to the things that you do, or the things that, frankly, you don't do, how you show up or how you don't. Because that's frankly what we're doing here on the podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. And I'd love for us to just have an open dialogue, as we absolutely love to have. By the way, you're now looking at behind the scenes at what happens with the four of us badass ladies when it comes to really figuring out what we're doing together and what life is all about. And so one of the big topics for today is going to be discussing what we've learned as part of our very first month in launching Successful But Struggling, so that you too can see it is not done all because it's perfect. As a matter of fact, it's the definition of not being perfect that I believe has made us so successful. So without further ado, who wants to kick us off with what you guys have seen when it comes to what were some of our big lessons learned? Joanne?
Thank you. I'm always like, me, pick me. talk about the lesson. So I'm in my learning process. I'm trying to not be the one always jumping in, but you could probably just see my energy. And and I love it that we're just going to be very candid, and we have sat down and talked about topics that we can bring here for you all. And as we were trying to decide which one of those many things that we can talk to you about, we decided, why don't we just hit record and have you all listen to the behind the scenes of how we even do all this together, right? Like, it's not easy. Every time that I say, I'm like starting a podcast, everyone gets really excited. And then it's like, and it's four of us and we're friends and we're sharing ideas, and people's eyes like open up, like, four people in a podcast. That has to be difficult. And it can be difficult, but yet I think that's part of what makes it beautiful and unique, because then this happens, right? It's not just someone grabbing a phone or a microphone and just talking. We get together, right? And I like to think of life as a like formula, right? Like our formula for success. Right. And some things are very automatic, and sometimes you have to sit down and plan a little and still show up. Right. I love that you mentioned the perfectionism, because how many of us get stuck in perfectionism? Right. Like this is something that I talk so much about when I'm coaching other women in medicine, and it's that perfectionism that gets in the way. So we are fighting our own and coming up here, being our own selves and sharing with you all. But I would love to hear those first thoughts from the rest of the group before I just keep on talking.
Aaron, what were your biggest takeaways in terms of our journey?
I think that one of the biggest takeaways for me is that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? How many tech issues have we solved together? I'm not a tech person, but I'm learning so much. And instead of getting frustrated because we're so-called beginners at figuring this all out, then just going, wow, look at all the things that we're learning together. And the power of four of us, we don't all share the same strengths. But when we lean on each other, with each other's strengths, and say, hey, this is not my forte. Can somebody else take the lead on this one? We are at least 4 times more powerful. And if not, sometimes I talk about, you start with one person. There's not much math you can do with one. You add 2 and then 3 and 4. And now the way you can move the numbers around, as Eunicia will tell you with her expertise with numbers, it's amazing how much more powerful you are when you go from 1 to 4. And I love that yes, it can be more complicated, but so much more fun. And then the ability to problem solve with 4 brains instead of 1, so much easier.
there's a lot of depth in all of that as well. Just as we have those conversations, it's amazing to me that I might be thinking something and you all are all thinking something totally different, and the breadth of knowledge and the breadth of thought leadership that comes in our discussions is it's just amazing. What about Mim, you for yourself? What have been some of those big lessons learned?
Well, certainly. And I love everything that's been said. Certainly the tech issues and learning patience and learning perseverance. Something that really comes to mind for me is Joanne mentioned that we're friends. We're fellow, we're colleagues. I actually referred to us as colleagues to someone the other day, and they said, "So they all do what you do? Is that what you mean?" I said, "No, we have a wealth strategist. We have two doctors, and we have me as the leadership coach. So we all do different. And the doctors, they certainly have their different areas of focus, and they have different in medicine, different specialties. So a lot of different here." But we are colleagues because we are all people who have something in common, and that is that we have enjoyed and are grateful for the great success that we've all had. And we know that even when you're successful, there's a struggle. There are a series of struggles, and we love helping other people who are successful moving through the struggle. So we have these relationships already, the friendship, the colleagues, the professional camaraderie. And what strikes me is, and that I have so enjoyed in this last month, is how we've gotten to know each other better, how we've gotten to know each other in different ways. And not only am I finding out more about my dear friends and colleagues' expertise, and we're in sessions together and we're talking together, and I'm thinking, really, you do that? And of course, we had talked so much about our businesses, but now we're going deeper in that knowledge. So we're getting to know each other better. And then there's just the process of going through all the scheduling glitches and all the tech glitches and all these things, and getting to know each other sort of through thick and thin. So it just strikes me that part of being successful and part of the struggle that people move through, such a huge part of life, you're not an island, and you're in relationship, whoever you are, you're in relationship with people. And for you to accomplish what you need to accomplish, whether it's things with your relationships or your business or your health or your finances, whatever you need to accomplish that with other people. You need support. You need community. And a lot of times that support, like, these people are close to us. They're people who we're in business with, or they're people in our family. And what I have learned this last month is a part of it is just when you're on a project together, when you do something new together, when you do something different together, you get to progress that relationship. You get to explore that relationship more and take it further. And so again, if you are listening to this, you are someone who is successful, and you find, and you want to move through those struggles, which means you want more and you want to reach higher. And what I think the advice I would give, not that that was your question, Eunicia, but from what I've learned is you want to grow. You want to grow. And whether it's you and your team, whether it's you and your family, it may be time to, if you want to grow, if you want to take a good thing to a great thing, or if you want to take a challenging thing to a better thing, it may be time for a new project together. Maybe time for something that's here's a mission we have together. We can work towards side by side, whether it's something, again, business or personal. So that's a little deep, but that's what I've taken out of this month.
I love that, because something that you said, it led me to think about, frankly, a lot of experiences that I've come across just this past month in my own business life, in my own personal life, where individuals would ask the question of, Eunicia, how do we lean into that unknown? And I'm paraphrasing it here, right? And you said the same thing. And that's exactly what we've done here. So as you're listening to us and you're wondering, how in the world did these four ladies who have such vast different backgrounds, they're coming together, they're adding value? Here's the beautiful thing. You cannot, to Mim's point, we are not going at this alone. We have coaches, we have individuals that are support us, and they're pouring into us to make sure that we're successful. And in our turn and in our own way, we do the same with our clients. And something that I'd love you guys' perspective on, that I'd love for us to share with our listeners, is this idea of beginner's mindset. I know when it comes to podcasting personally, I've done a lot of podcasts, and yet every time I show up for a new episode, it still feels fresh. It feels new. It feels exciting. But as we're launching, or as we launched this podcast, certainly there was that, it still was a beginning. It was a beginning that we all had to overcome. How did you guys make either peace, or did you overcome the struggles of when your mind said, I don't know, this might be too hard, or I don't know if this is going to work, or because I know that that's going to be very relevant to our listeners.
If I can interrupt, because my head is going to explode listening to what Mim was saying. And for those of you watching our YouTube, I'm like here taking notes from all my colleagues, all the amazing things that you guys are saying. And one thing I do want to talk about the beginner's mindset because it's so important. But one thing sort of related is because we are friends and we get together and we do so many things together. We have been talking about the idea of the podcast for a while, or some kind of summit or some way to collaborate, because there's so many things that we can bring in together, right? It's like you guys were saying, it's an exponential growth. And one thing that we did, right, which is part of our formula, is that we finally took action. And it wasn't like take action of, oh, let's just start recording, right? Like you can start taking action of just investigating. What are other groups that do podcasts together, and who can help us, and what do we need, and what microphone to buy, right? And all the things. So that I think that's been so important for us, right? Like the taking action, which is related to the beginner's mindset, because right, like and I was actually just talking about this earlier today with a patient. It's a little tangent, but related. That right, like a lot of people talk about motivation, and I say that motivation is like pixie dust. It's kind of magical, so it's not with us all the time. And a lot of times, the taking action, it's a little bit forced at the beginning, and you have to figure out what's that mini step that you can take, and then take another one, and then another one, and then the momentum builds, right? And it's the momentum that keeps you going, and we cannot just depend on the motivation. And you know, like in my experience, also in terms of the beginner's mindset, is I was with a group of ladies that I coached this last week in a retreat, and I was telling them that I love coaching. And I have been a psychiatrist for more than 20 years. And coaching seems so overwhelming, like to think of a business in coaching. And it wasn't until I realized this part of the coaching I'm really good at, because I'm trained, I know it, I can integrate what I know as a mental health provider. And the business part, the marketing, the website, all those things that feel so difficult to me, that's where I was a beginner. And it was a nice distinction. So that's kind of my lesson here too, that sometimes we have to have that distinction of the parts of us that we feel very confident, and then the parts that feel a little bit more beginner, and where maybe we need a little bit more courage and take that first step. And what better way to do it with people who can help you, who can elevate you, that you can leverage, like you all do with, right? Like we all do with me, and we all do together. So that was what I have in mind.
If I can add to that, Joanne, the part you said about the momentum, and I think the beginner's mindset. So when you think about the momentum it takes to get something started, right? Whether that's getting your car moving forward, starting a new project, it takes a lot of time and energy. And then add to that when you're a beginner, and then don't minimize that, right? Recognize, oh, I'm a beginner at these parts, and this is new, and all those things, and say, no wonder it's taking so much effort. No wonder I'm asking for help. No wonder it's not easy. I don't have the muscle memory. I don't have the repetitions. Recognizing that heavy lift now is going to, in 6 to 12 months, we're going to be laughing at all the struggles we had this month, because we showed up and we asked for help to share the load, to share that weight. But again, let's not forget where we're at in the process and not minimize that.
I love what you both said regarding that. And something that just kind of keeps coming back to mind is you both, Aaron and Joanne, you said the new, right? There's new. And something that when we sit and look back in retrospect, I see this in me all the time. You're talking about the website, and then there's the funnel, and then there's something else. And there's always a new level of new. And I go back to you guys hear me say a lot, the most successful people are always finding something new to work on. Because if they didn't, they would feel stale. They would not know what to do with their time. They would way outpace themselves, right? And they would get bored. And I think that's the definition of individuals that want more is, as you're listening to this, chances are you're probably going through something very similar. Maybe you're not pulling together a podcast with amongst you and your 3 really close friends. But maybe you're having to make decisions. Maybe it's something on your personal side, in your personal life. Maybe it's career. Maybe it's your business. Just give yourself the permission to be and to realize that it's okay for you to feel like you're starting again, because by the time you're going to be done and you're going to feel like you excelled in that new thing that you're starting right now, chances are I'd be willing to bet that you probably would have already thought or started something else. And that's very powerful. Just thinking about it from that perspective will give you the ability to just give yourself some additional grace.
Yep. You do need to give yourself. I so agree, my friends. You do need to give yourself grace. And because it's hard, or because there's a hiccup, or because that's not a signal to stop. That's a signal to, it's typically a signal to keep going. And what I'm going to go deep again. What I truly believe is that as you do these things, what you are doing is you're working yourself. You are growing yourself. You are becoming more and more of who you are supposed to be. And Eunicia, I love that you started this whole conversation, this part of the conversation, by saying, lean into the unknown. And I'm floored, because what I have over, I wish you could all see it, but over on the side wall in my studio here, I have a photograph of a sculpture by an ancestor of mine. Now, this ancestor, his name is Herman McNeil, and he was a famous American sculptor. And he designed one of our quarters, the American quarter. So for any Americans listening to this, one of our earlier quarters, he designed one of the pediments on our U.S. Supreme Court building. The sculpture that I have a photo of, and that I traveled across the country and made I was there for clients, but I got in a car and I drove several hours because I wanted to see this sculpture. I finally tracked down where it was. I knew it existed because an elderly relative had told me about it. And this sculpture is amazing. Just very briefly, you know how Michelangelo talked about the David, that it was this big slab, a piece of marble, and that David was already in there. He just needed to chisel away. And so what this sculpture is, it's this mostly carved, but not all carved. It's there's a piece of marble, and part of the marble is in back, but what you have is an angel, a really beautiful. She looks Botticelli-esque sort of angel, but she is turning around. You see a wing, you see another wing, but she's turning around, and she's got a hammer and a chisel, and she is carving herself out of stone. And the name of this sculpture, the title of this sculpture is Into the Unknown. So when Eunicia said, lean into the unknown, as we start this podcast, everyone, that is what we are inviting you to do in your own life, because you don't want to just stop with the struggle. You're already successful, but you can go further. And that is always, 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 as we've said, that's going to require the new, that you start the new. And that's going to require that you lean into the unknown. But take heart. And as Aaron said, be kind to yourself along the way, because struggles are not a sign that you should stop. They are a sign to keep going and to find a way, because you will grow yourself as you do that.
That is so powerful, ma'am. Oh my gosh. So it just gives me goosebumps. Here's what I'll say. You talked about the struggles. Earlier you said hardships. I would go on a limb to say challenges, questions, fill in the blank. Like you can fill in the blank. That first part are a signal to not to stop what you're doing, but to go deep. So what is it that you're dealing with? What is it that you're struggling with? What is it that you're trying to figure out where you're going, I don't know. It's time to go deep. Here's something that I'll tell you for me has made such a big impact. And one of the reasons I am so excited that we're doing this podcast together, it was actually somebody that the four of us know. I asked this individual years back because ever since I've been doing podcast guesting, individuals would say, Unicia, you need to establish your own podcast. And I went back to this person and I said, hey, here's what I'm being told, that I should open up my own podcast. The voice needs to be out there. And the feedback that I got was, nah, don't worry about it. It's not where the value is. Foreshadowing, several years later, we're now here together, and I could not be more proud that we are doing this together. The only thing that I wish is that I would not have listened to that voice that said, nah, don't worry about it. Because part of me, when I'm looking back in retrospect, goodness gracious, we could have been so much further ahead, and we could have added so much more value to our listeners and to the people that have been asking for us. I mean, we're speaking on stages, we're doing different things, we're speaking at conferences. They would have wanted us to do this sooner and earlier. And so going back to what you said earlier, Mim and Joanne and Aaron, lean into that struggle, lean into chiseling your own path. It's not going to be easy. It's probably going to hurt. I mean, let's be honest. If we were a block of granite, it would not be easy to be doing that chisel, but it would be so worth it.
And because I love to think that I am guided and that the universe protects us, I would say maybe that's what you needed to hear, so that we started it now, all four of us together, like so prepared, so ready. So I think that sometimes those obstacles that we get in the way just get us even more ready for what we're really supposed to step into, right? So I am always very grateful of the good and the bad in my life, because it allows us to get to where we are. And you know what? Something so important, and I think that hopefully we're going to show that for you all, is that and I think we see it more in women, we tend to do things alone, and it's not always like, oh, I can do better, but it's more of like, oh, let me not bother someone else, or I'm fine, I don't need help. And how beautiful that all that we've lived has allowed us to come together as friends and as colleagues, as we were saying before, so that we can put all these ideas together and make it even bigger, because we need that, right? Like that's another challenge for those of you. And this is not particular to women, right? Like we need more interdependence, more togetherness, more collaboration, right? Like we'll go farther together, and hopefully we're going to be an example of that as well. And I am super grateful to be here and for you all listening. And to me, it's beautiful.
It is indeed. And yes, I am blessed that I waited.
Yes,
Joanne, I am blessed for that.
Grateful
Go ahead,
to
Aaron.
you. All of you.
Yeah, Joanne, one of the things that reminds me of a proverb, I hope I don't mess this up. I think it's an African proverb, and it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's where I get chills thinking about that, and that I realize how far I'm going to be able to go because I'm not going alone. I have each of you to help move me forward. And that power of community and togetherness will, we can each pick each other up to keep going when one of us is tired or not feeling our best. And that will help us keep moving along this path. So my hope is that you're going to think about, what are you doing alone that maybe you shouldn't be doing alone? What can you ask for help for so that you can show up even better?
That's so good, Aaron. I was just thinking of that proverb. I'm so glad you said it, because I would have messed it up. And as I'm listening to all of us, here's what I'm taking away just from this last part. Certainly what Aaron just said, just don't go alone. Back to what Unicia said, don't delay. Be willing to do it messy. be willing to do it messy. And that leads into the topic of perfectionism, which I believe we're going to say for another episode, because boy, is that a biggie. So lots to say on that, but don't delay, do it messy. And then to this whole point of, this is for us with this podcast, this is our perfect timing. So we all have things that we look back, say, I wish I hadn't listened to them. I know, I should have known that I know what I'm doing. And of course, we don't stay in regret there. You got to trust the path. You got to trust the path.
And that is so powerful. And yes, I don't want you, as you're listening to this, to think that in any way, shape, or form, and am I regretting it. My message to you was, just like Mim said, and just like Joanne said, just again, lean into it. Just take the bull by the horns and know that when you have the support on your side, you're going to go much further. And it's okay for it to be messy, and it's okay for you to step into that area of, I'll call it unknown again, because that's what it is, right? Where you don't know what is on the other side. Because until you get and you push through to figure out what's on the other side is not going to reveal itself. That's for sure.
Well, this has been amazing, talking about leaning into the unknown with courage, right? Like that perfectionism that gets in our way. And yes, we'll be talking more about that. The importance of connection and leveraging each other, right? With love and compassion, and take action, imperfect action, right? Like the beginner's mindset that we're hopefully modeling for you all here. So this is us being successful and learning through the struggle, getting stronger through the struggle, and showing up in the most vulnerable way, which is one of the first words that we shared today. So we hope to keep on seeing you. This is us being in real life, and we're looking for ideas. So whatever pops up into your head while you're listening to us that you would want to learn more from, and yes, please hit share, like, subscribe, all those amazing things so that we can keep on going here for you all. And again, this is Mim, Erin, Aunicia, and Joanne, your podcast, Successful But Struggle. Thank you very much.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.